My name is Linda Abraham. I'm going to present 7 Steps to MBA Acceptance in 2019. And just a little bit of background about me. I've been an MBA admissions consultant since 1994. I've been many times quoted in Poets and Quants, the Wall Street Journal, U.S. News, Business Week, and other publications regarding MBA admissions. I'm also the co-founder and first president of the Association of International Graduate Admissions Consultants. And I'm looking forward, despite the cold that you may be hearing, to sharing my 20-plus years of admissions experience with you. Before we begin, I wanted to point out a few items that will help you maximize your time here today, and one that will help us improve these webinars. So let's get going with these items. 1, if you've not yet downloaded your webinar worksheet, take a second to do so and print it out. That would be my recommendation. Obviously, you don't have to. You can find it linked to in the handout section of your control panel. I think that if you use it either to follow along or to take notes, which would be my recommendation, you're going to get much more out of today's presentation. I'm also going to ask several questions in the course of the presentation. Some will be polls where you'll choose an option on the screen. Some will be open-ended questions which I'm going to ask you to answer in the question window, which we're going to use for your questions as well as your answers. And some will ask you to raise your hand. You can do so by clicking on the hand icon, 2 icons underneath the horizontal orange arrow on your control panel. So raising your hand in front of the monitor won't do any good. Yes, it's been done. It's that hand icon that you're going to need when I ask for hand raising. We're also going to have a contest towards the end of the webinar based solely on content presented during the webinar. So stay tuned and maybe you can be a winner. When you leave, you'll receive a brief survey. This is the part that's going to help us. Please fill it out. We really value your feedback, and we do use it to improve future webinars and also choose what webinars to give. Before we get into the heart of today's presentation, I'd like to learn a little bit about you. And to start, I'd also like to test your hand-raising skills. Please raise your hand if you want to go to business to pursue your dream career and enhance professional opportunity. Again, please raise your hand if that's the purpose of your being here today. That's really what this webinar is about. It's about helping you enhance your professional opportunities and ultimately pursue the career that you really want to pursue. Now, I also have a couple of polls. As I said, I do like to learn about you. So the first question is, when do you intend to apply? The options are fall 2018, winter 2018-19, sometime later, or you're really not sure. If you can, all right, we're starting to get some responses here. And we have 82% having voted, so I'm going to close the poll. I'm going to share the results. And the majority of you want to apply in the fall of 2018. That's great. 52%, or 58%, I'm sorry. 13% are winter. 23% are sometime later. And 6% are just not sure. Okay, so that was poll number 1. And then I also want to let you know that we're going to have a special offer today. And in the past, I've only shared the offer at the end of the webinar. I'm not going to do that anymore. I've been told that some people are very anxious about the offer, and therefore I'm going to share it at the beginning and at the end, okay? And you can get, today only, $100 off any MBA service that Exhibit.com provides. It can be as little as 1 hour of advising, which means that instead of paying $315, you'll pay $215. That's a fantastic discount, almost a third. Or you can get $100 off any of our other services, application packages, essay packages, interview prep, whatever it is that you want. Now, what motivated me to provide this webinar? We're still over 6 months at least away from actual round 1 deadlines, which is the choice for most of you. The webinar has basically grown from 3 seeds. One is my frustration with applicants who start the process too late and shortchange their chances at their dream schools. So I intentionally offer this webinar very early in the process because I want to emphasize what you can do now to enhance your chances of acceptance. The other seed, the second seed, is the amount of limiting and misleading imagery in MBA advising. Some of this comes from admissions directors, some from consultants like myself, and sometimes MBA applicants and students. And the third seed is the paradox at the heart of MBA admissions, and we're going to get to that towards the end of the webinar. After over 20 years in this business, I've seen a lot of metaphors used to describe the MBA admissions process. Probably one of the more popular ones is it's an accounting exercise. It's a time for you to take stock of your assets and your liabilities. Others will say it's all about personal branding. And so others say it's really about marketing. Well, I believe metaphors and similes can be useful. I think that they have been abused in the MBA admissions process and that consequently they have obscured the process. The process is definitely about self-reflection, which would be another word for accounting. It is about marketing yourself and putting your best foot forward. And there is some element of personal branding too, to that marketing. But personal branding, I think, tends to be a rather limiting concept. When what the admissions committees really want to meet is a multi-dimensional human being as opposed to a jingle or a one-dimensional brand. I also can't promise here an image-free webinar, especially using slides and screen sharing software. I do believe that the next 40 minutes or so will provide you with a purpose-driven, goal-centered, I don't believe it, I promise, it's going to provide you with a purpose-driven, goal-centered approach to the MBA application process, including what you should be doing now, 6 months to 9 months if you're applying round 2, before you submit your applications. And these steps will maximize your chances of acceptance at top MBA programs when you apply in round 1 or round 2 of the 2018-19 application season. And that's, of course, where over 70% of you plan to do. And for those of you applying later or not sure, these steps will still help you. So let's cultivate those seeds into flourishing, healthy MBA applications. That phrase was not bad for someone who just complained about abuse of metaphors, but let's proceed. The first seed, my annual frustration with applicants who come to us at the last minute. Don't do it. Yes, we can polish the essays during the week before the essays are due, but we can do so much more if you start early. That's particularly true if you wait to the last minute to start writing your essays. So start the process earlier, come to us earlier, and we'll be in a lot better shape. This webinar is all about using the next several months before the applications come out to improve your profile and maximize your chances of acceptance. Now, question for you, and I'd like an answer in the question window. What should be the starting point of your MBA planning and application process? What should be the guiding North Star? Ooh, Alicia, you're good. Right. So Hardeep, good. Right. In my opinion, your guiding North Star should be your post-MBA goal. Having clear career direction. Knowing what you want to get out of the process. That should be your starting point. So step number 1, and really the foundation of a solid MBA application, is honing your goal. Begin with the end in mind. And again, even if your goal changes while you're in business school, that's okay. But starting off with that direction is the foundation for everything. And I'll give you an example here. This is a dialogue I had with Sujin Kwan, director of University of Michigan's Ross Business School. What makes an application really stand out for you? People who seem to really know what they want and know themselves and who can articulate it well. They can connect the dots. And I can give you many other quotes from a variety of business schools and admissions directors that echo this, that you can show them that the school will be the bridge between where you are at this moment, given your past experience in education, and where you want to go in the future. So what are your post-MBA goals? They can be, the classic immediate post-MBA goal is, I want to do X, that's a function, in industry Y. And that is really how you need to be able to define that professional direction that you have. Many times schools will also ask about long-term goals, 5, 10, occasionally 20 years down the road. And that can be fuzzier, it doesn't have to be as clearly defined. But if you have something like that, It could also be a little bit more aspirational, maybe having something to do with social good. It's less critical from an admissions perspective, but if you have something like that, especially if there is an element of social good to it, don't hide it. Be prepared to discuss it. And obviously, it should flow logically from what you've done in the past, your immediate post-MBA goal, and everything that you do in between. Now, what should you do if you're not certain what your goals are? How do you intend to handle that? How many of you, I'd like you to raise your hands. How many of you know right now what you want to do post-MBA? Raise your hand if you do. Good. Good. We have about 29% who know what they want to do, 31% now post-MBA. So you are a fairly directed group, and that's great. For the other 70% of you, what are you going to do to clarify your goal in the question window? Try to understand yourself. Good. Introspect. Good. Good. Any other suggestions? Self-reflection. Good. That's a good starting point. That is definitely a good starting point. Look at what you like and look at what you're good at. That should be kind of the focus of your of that self-reflection and introspection. But in addition, I'd suggest that you talk to people who are in positions that you find attractive or who hire people in positions that you find attractive. For the people who are in those positions, ask them what do they actually do during the day? What is their typical day like? And for the people who do the hiring, or even for the people in those positions, what education do they believe is useful? Which of their classes were useful? What part of their educational background was useful? Do they wish they would have had some kind of background or training before they started? And for those people who are in the hiring position, or even again those already in the positions that you would like, from what programs are people hired for the positions rather that you find attractive? Those are the kinds of questions you should be asking. And and obviously you can do web research in terms of different careers and career paths and all that, and you should. But self-reflection is a good place to start. I would also include informational interviews. In addition to the self-reflection and research that you can do, talking to people can be very, very helpful. Once you have a clearly defined goal, it will be a substantive and meaningful guide in the process of selecting the schools that you're going to apply to, and also in how you invest your time once you get into a business school program. And finally, realize that while I'm talking about the goals being the North Star for you as you go through the process, many schools, as I showed you that slide from Sujin Kwan, are really looking for clearly defined, realistic post-MBA goals. And it is at some schools as much a requirement of admission as a competitive GMAT or quality work experience. Tuck certainly has looked for those in the past, Chicago Booth, Columbia, Stanford, many, many programs look for clearly defined post-MBA career direction as almost an admissions requirement. That's why so many schools ask about the goal. They care. Well, okay, so some of you talked about your GMAT, your work experience, etc., as a starting place. And those are definitely important, but I put those as number 2. Evaluate your qualifications. That's step number 2. And there are 4 basic areas to examine when we talk about your qualifications. Number 1 is academics. Show that you can and will do the work. Grades and test scores are the most common ways to show academic ability, but they're not exclusively how you can show you can do the work. They are the most common ways. Okay? Second pillar is work experience. Now, I'd like to ask you a little bit about what is most important in terms of work experience. Quantity, quality, or both? Which do you think? Here we go. I'm going to share the results. 61% said quality, 39% said both are important. I'm in the both are important camp. Quantity does count, okay? Most schools will either not accept at all applicants with no full-time work experience or only exceptional candidates with full-time work experience. So quantity does count. There's also a point at which too much work experience, I think, also can become an issue. So quantity is a factor. Quality is definitely important, and therefore I'm in the both are important camp. Okay, let's go on. Now, in terms of quantity, which is the easiest to define, the bullseye is 3 to 6 years, 2 to 8 years on the outside. And for quality, what we're talking about, obviously it's a little bit fuzzier than amount of work experience. We're talking about responsibility. Have you in your work experience been entrusted with increasing responsibility? Can you show growth on the job? Can you show impact on the job? Demonstrated managerial ability. Have you organized anything, managed anything? Those are all really important. One element that can add to your work experience is if it's multicultural, global, involves some international work experience. That can also help. Okay, let's go on. The third pillar in terms of your qualification is personal qualities. What are some of the personal qualities that schools are looking for? In the question window, please. Hard work. Hard work is not going to differentiate you. It's kind of assumed. Leadership. Yes, Emanuela. Creativity. That's definitely part of it. Leadership potential. Good, Alicia. Anybody else? Teamwork. Excellent. That's right. Leadership and teamwork. Determination, drive. Good, Jeremy. Community engagement. That's not exactly the kind of personal quality I'm looking for, but it's definitely something that schools like. Inspiration. Probably the ability to inspire others. Communication skills. Very good, Alicia. You're on this one. Okay. Problem solving, creativity. Good. Yes. All right. I would say the biggest one is leadership ability. They're training future leaders, future managers. So that's probably the most important trait. But schools also want to see teamwork, organizational, analytical, and communication skills, initiative, and increasingly an entrepreneurial mindset, if not actual entrepreneurship. They want to see that you're a contributor, a giver, a person of impact and consequence. Now, I have to tell you that yesterday I interviewed Keith Bevins of Bain & Company for our podcast, Mission Straight Talk. And the qualities that he says they look for are very similar to what business schools look for. Now, that's not surprising in and of itself, but this idea that you present yourself as a contributor and a person who makes a difference, a person of impact and consequence, that carries through not only in admissions to business school, but even to very desirable employers. Now, the fourth pillar is fit, showing that you identify with the school's values and will fit well into its culture, that you meet its qualification, and will add to its community. On some level, the first three pillars are also about fit, and frankly, so is the step number one, that foundational, clear career direction. But I added this one because the school's mission and stated criteria or values are absolutely critical, and a lot of times applicants kind of gloss over them. Since they are less quantitative, less concrete, a little bit more difficult to put your finger on. And maybe, Jeremy, you just listed heart as one of them. Again, that might be a little bit of what I'm talking about here. Can any of these four pillars be improved at this point in time and before you apply? Absolutely. Enhanced? Yes, because you are starting early. Can you improve your profile to make yourself more competitive? We'll get to that in action step number 4. Action step number 3, use this time to research the schools. This is really, really important. Now, I have a poll for you right now. Which element below is least important in selecting schools? And the 4 elements are career placement, curriculum, ranking, and extracurricular activities. Okay, come on, more of you should vote. The options are career placement, curriculum, ranking, and extracurricular activities. 57% have voted. We have 2 that are fairly close in the lead. One's breaking out. And then we have 2 that are far behind. Okay, with 82% having voted, I'm going to close the poll. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Close the poll, share the poll, and actually it's 84% having voted. Most of you felt that extracurricular activities were the least important. In my view, rankings are the least important. Okay, and I knew that was intentional. The rankings present what's important to certain media. The elements that the media are ranking may not be important to you. But the networking opportunities and career support that extracurricular activities can provide you in business school are frankly right after career placement and curriculum and well ahead of ranking in my book. Obviously, you're welcome to your opinion, but those that I would have chosen ranking here, okay? Ranking is not going to, it can be layered in when you're accepted to multiple schools and you're fairly neutral between the schools, then look at the rankings. But other than that, I would focus on career placement, curriculum, and the extracurricular opportunities that a school provides. So, how are you going to research these elements? Well, recruiting and placement, educational preferences, extracurricular activities and opportunities. These are things, and personal preferences, well, they're also going to play into your decision. But where will you look for this? Well, career services, employment reports will give you a lot of information on career placement. There are also websites off the school's websites that provide information. Glassdoor, there's an MBA one that it's about 2 years old. Rachel, do you remember what one that's called? I know they changed their name. You can maybe post it. Then there's a school website that will definitely describe the curriculum and the educational approach of the school. I'd also look, and here you're going to laugh because I just basically slammed the rankings, you might want to look at specialty rankings. If you know the direction that you want to take your career, look at those programs that are highly ranked for that particular specialty. Also look at blogs that are written by current students and recent alumni. And you may want to try and reach out and contact current students and recent alumni. You can do so using LinkedIn, or a lot of the club pages will list officers and provide contact information for specific clubs. Also, to the extent possible, attend MBA tour events and school-sponsored events in your location. The best way to learn about schools is also the most difficult and expensive in terms of time and money, and that is visiting the schools themselves. Now, you're going to spend probably, by the time you get done with tuition and opportunity cost, over a couple $100,000, maybe $300,000 on your MBA education. And you may want to visit to make sure that investment is really right for you. So not everybody can do it. I understand that. But if you can swing it, I highly recommend a visit. And when you do visit, take advantage of every opportunity the school offers. Attending classes, talking with students, taking the tour, whatever they provide for visiting students, take advantage of it. And try and visit when school is in session. It's not always possible, but that would, again, give you, I think, maximum value for the visit. Now, when you're choosing schools, I think you have to answer two key questions. One, does the school support your goals? And two, are you competitive at that school? If it only supports your goals and you're not competitive, or if you apply to programs that only support your goals where you are not competitive, you're going to end up with a result like this. There's no intersection between these two circles, and frankly, you're very likely to get rejected. What you want to do is end up applying, at least where the majority of schools that you apply to are in this kind of golden area, where the schools you want to attend are also the schools likely to want you based on your qualifications and the people that they typically admit. What if your school looks more like the rejection than the acceptance, more like this? Your list looks than this. Well, then you have another. Then you need to either choose other schools or improve your qualifications. And that, the latter point, improving your qualifications, is action item number 4. Improving areas that need to be improved in your profile. So let's first talk about academics. Okay, that was the pillar number 1. And let's start with grades. Now, you're not going to go back and retake college or all your undergrad courses if your grades were low. But you do need to provide evidence that you have the ability and the self-discipline, maturity to succeed in a demanding academic environment. Now, I went into that in great detail in a podcast, 5 A's for your low GPA. You can see the URL there, accepted.com/137. I strongly encourage you to listen to that one. If your quant skills are weak, if you're the proverbial poet but your grades are good, you might want to consider something like MBAmath.com, HBX Core, or massive open online courses. If the GMAT or GRE is your concern, well, you're not going to like what I'm about to say, but the best way to handle a low GMAT or GRE is to retake and raise it. If you're not sure if you should retake or if you've taken the GMAT 3 or more times, please see either of the two resources on the screen, and we'll be sending out these URLs later, so don't worry if you don't get to jot them all down. What if you feel that your work experience is deficient? Let's deal first with the quantity. Again, that's the easier one. If it's too little, you have a couple of options. You can wait a year, which time will kind of take care of that issue, or aim for schools with lower average ages at matriculation. If you're on the lower end of work experience, you're going to need to convince the schools that you have accomplished in your 0, 1, or 2 years of work experience what other people take 3 to 6 years to do. And it's a tough argument to make. Schools in the last several years have really turned away from admitting and matriculating MBA students straight from college and with less than 2 years of experience because employers are less interested in them. However, if you are right out of college or currently in college, there are programs geared for you in management, the MS in management, like that offered by Duke or London Business School, Kellogg, Ross. Those are all programs that may be more appropriate for you than the 2-year full-time MBA. What if you have too much work experience? Well, then I would say aim for programs with higher average ages at matriculation if you have, let's say, 6 to 8 years of work experience. If you have 10 plus years of work experience, consider executive MBA programs and Sloan Fellows programs. You have the Sloan Fellows program at MIT, London Business School, and Stanford's MSX, which is not technically a Sloan Fellows but is related to it. If you want to apply to the full-time MBA programs and you're in this well above average amount of work experience group, be extra clear about why you want an MBA now at your level, not why you didn't get it earlier, but why you want it now, and show that you are not relying on the school to find you your post-MBA job, because their career placement centers are geared to people with 4 to 5 years of work experience. If you had, you can talk about either you already have a job that you'll return to, maybe you have your own business, or you have the contacts necessary to achieve your dreams and that post-MBA job. I mentioned before that one way to enhance your profile, the work experience element, is to add an international component. It's not required, but if you can seek an international placement or some cross-cultural work experience, that definitely is an enhancement. What about the personal qualities? Obviously, if you have the opportunity to take on greater responsibility at work, by all means, go for it. Positions that will allow you to show leadership, teamwork, communications, analytical skills, initiative, these are the kinds of opportunities that allow you to shine and will allow you also to show the impact, the making a difference that we talked about earlier. Now, it's frequently not so easy to do at work. It's because you're still fairly junior in your career, but it can be easier to assume leadership roles in volunteer commitments. And volunteer commitments also allow you to present yourself as a contributor. So I would encourage you, if you're not currently involved with at least one, and you don't have to have a lot of them, but one real commitment, to make a commitment to something outside of work, something that you feel passionately about or you enjoy, and because you'll have more opportunity to demonstrate leadership, organizational abilities, communication skills, and all those things or many of you will, not all of you, in a community service capacity than on the job. Now, some of you may think, well, if I start now, won't it look kind of hokey, like I'm just doing it for business school? And I would just say it's better to start now than not have it at all. So again, they're going to be looking at the impact you've had more than at your motivation for starting or when you started. So make it worth everybody's while. And we've talked about retaking the GMAT, taking classes, assuming more leadership and responsibility, making a community service commitment. Until now, we've been talking about pre-application strategy and tactics more than implementation and actual application. But I'd like to shift gears here a little bit and discuss 3 to-dos, the remaining 3 of my 7 steps, that will directly contribute to your application when the applications actually come out. So, action item number 5 is essay prep. But I'm not talking about pre-drafting essays. Because essay questions change, things will change. I just wouldn't start with that stuff yet. What I would start is I would create a file. You can do it on your computer, or you can use Evernote or Google Keep or any of those kinds of tools where you can jot down ideas for topics to include or experiences that you're proud of, that showed you as a contributor, showed you as somebody who makes a difference. You can include notes from your informational interviews. You can include thoughts about schools after you've attended some of those events, those MBA tour events or receptions, or visited the schools. And yes, you can also include thoughts on possible essay topics for, let's say, leadership essays or your professional goals essay. Again, I just take notes. I wouldn't really start drafting essays yet. And in terms of jotting down notes and ideas for the essays, ask yourself, what experiences are you most proud of? What would you like the schools to know about you? What was a challenge you faced in that particular experience that you're proud of? What did you do? What was the impact and the result of your actions? What character traits did you reveal through your activities? Was it really, really good listening? Was it ability to reduce tension on a team where there was conflict or friction? Inspiration? Inspiring the people that you were leading? Again, those kinds of notes can be really, really helpful when you sit down and start writing and drafting the essays. Once applications are out, then you start working the essays, if you are so inclined. But for now, I would nail the other stuff. Start working the essays in June or July if you are aiming for round 1 deadlines. Action item number 6, work on your resume. This is something you can nail now. Most schools prefer a 1-page resume. Follow the directions provided by your specific schools in terms of 1 or 2 pages in length. And when you're considering the content of your resume, focus on achievements and outcomes, not just descriptions of responsibilities. Quantify your impact whenever possible, and don't use bullet points to repeat what your job title implies. So for example, if you're a financial analyst, don't say, I analyzed investments. That doesn't tell me anything. Now, you could say that you analyze an investment of X millions and recommended it, and the company made so it's a return on investment of Y%. That's a different kind of bullet point, much more impressive. Action item number 7, decide on and talk to your recommenders. Ask them if they're willing to write a strong, supportive letter of recommendation for you. Tell them you'll give them material that will help them, and also about 4 weeks' notice, and give them a time frame. If you're going to want them to work on this in August, and they're away on vacation all of August, well, maybe you want to give it to them in July. All right, that has to be worked out between you. You don't need to ask them today, but I would ask them ahead of time, maybe May. Now, I'm going to review the 7 action items, but first, if you'd like to win a free copy of the book that I co-authored with Judy Gruen, MBA Admission for Smarties, listen up and have your fingers over the keyboard. The first 3 people who can answer correctly the next question will get a copy of MBA Admission for Smarties, paperback or Kindle in the United States, and Kindle outside the United States. In the question window, please post, what is the first to do of the 7 steps? Okay, good. All right, Spencer, Elizabeth, and Austin. You got it. On you go. Most of you have this. Fantastic. Oh, you're a great group. Okay, but Spencer, Elizabeth, and Austin, you were the first ones. You have, Rachel, do you have it? Okay, great. Then we're going to move on. Let's review them. Okay, you already got the first one, hone your goal. Second one, evaluate your qualifications. 3, research the schools. 4, improve those areas of your qualifications that need improving if you want to be able to apply to the programs that you feel are best given your goals. 5, essay prep. Again, no pressure, just jotting down notes. 6, work on your resume, and I would say polish that off. Decide on and ask recommenders if they will help you. Now, some of you will look at this list and wisely decide to apply second round or maybe even wait a year. Others will have only a few action items to do because you've already started on many of these tasks. Congratulations. But you all should have something to do, and whatever you do now will improve your chances of acceptance next year. Now, right now, I'd like you to write down, this is for yourself, it doesn't have to go in the question window, write down at least one action item you're going to start on this week based on today's webinar and set yourself a deadline for completion. And this is for yourself. Okay? Great, thanks. Now, one step is fine, but do you have a plan not only to prepare yourself to apply, but to actually complete the process? How are you going to show fit with target schools? And then for the paradox of MBA admissions, which we really haven't discussed. Once you show fit, how are you going to show that you also are a standout in the applicant pool, that you are an individual who contribute to your class, your school's community, and ultimately make a difference in the world? That's the third seed I mentioned way back at the beginning of this webinar. The stress-inducing paradox of MBA admissions is that you have to show you fit in at your target programs and at the same time are a unique individual, a standout in the applicant pool. And it's not easy. Now, we here at Accepted, we understand that. And if you're feeling a little overwhelmed now, you have lots of company in the applicant pool. We here at Accepted really understand how tough this process is. Many of us have MBAs, and we've been advising successful MBA applicants for years. You're now at a crossroads on your professional journey. As you start your pursuit of the MBA, you can either take a do-it-yourself approach or a professional approach. Given that we're talking about your career, lifelong earnings, and job satisfaction, I highly recommend the professional approach and engagement with an accepted consultant. We'd like to help you apply confidently and successfully. While you want to do this exactly one time, or one more time if any of you are reapplicants, we've been helping MBA applicants get accepted for over 20 years. We'd love to help you not only get accepted, but get into a program that launches you on your dream career trajectory. Put simply, it pays to have an experienced professional guiding you in this critical process. Here's what you can do when you work with Accepted. You access expertise and experience. You can reduce your stress, save time, optimize your school choice and application, and mitigate weaknesses. Candor, a mentor, and objectivity combined with expertise and decades of experience in MBA admissions. That's what you get when you engage an Accepted consultant. Now, some may say Accepted is expensive, and we're definitely not cheap because of the quality of our staff. However, there are also expensive risks associated with not using Accepted. Reapplication can easily cost a couple $1,000s. One additional year of pre-MBA earnings can cost in the 5 figures. One additional year of a job you dislike, if that's your situation. And the potential that you could have gotten into a better program with lifelong higher earnings and network could cost you, I don't know, lifetime? I'll let you figure that one out. Every year, we work with applicants who talked to us a year earlier and decided, after taking the do-it-yourself approach and getting rejected, to work with us second time around. They would have been better off working with us initially, and frankly, so would you. But enough from me. What do accepted clients say? Let me give you a couple of examples of how we've helped our clients. Actually, a few more than a couple. Here's feedback from clients. It is an overwhelming process, but Karen offered a structured and comprehensive approach and solid advice on the entire MBA application process. Without a shadow of a doubt, I recommend working with Karen. This person was accepted to Oxford. I've been admitted to Booth, and I'm accepting. Your help and guidance was outstanding and allowed me to focus my energy on presenting myself in the best light, getting the result we wished for. Well, here are a couple of stories. Sally, not her real name, thought she should aim for schools outside the top 10 because she attended a no-name college. After reviewing her qualifications, Natalie Greenblatt Epstein, her accepted consultant, and a former admissions director at 3 business schools, persuaded her to at least try for a couple of top 10 schools. She got into Wharton and MIT. She wouldn't even have tried to apply to them had she not worked with Natalie. Not too shabby. Then there was the Indian male consultant who got rejected the first time around and started working with accepted consultant Jennifer Bloom early in the process the second time around. In his words, "Yesterday I got the good news, and it was from Harvard. I'm absolutely thrilled. Amidst the euphoria, I want to take out a moment to thank Accepted, Jennifer in particular, for all the help and in ways that went beyond admissions consulting." And we're going to put our money where our mouth is and offer you $100 off, as I announced at the beginning. You can start with just 1 hour purchase, $315 less $100 is $215. Get your burning questions answered and answered by experts. Discuss how to proceed, how to mitigate your weaknesses, and of course, where to apply. I've given you guidelines in this webinar, and I've tried to be as practical and concrete as I can. But there's nothing like talking to an expert about your individual circumstances. And this also would allow you to try us out at an extraordinarily low price point in case you would like comprehensive help later when it comes to actually applying. We offer flat rate packages as well as hourly plans, but again, that's for later. For now, here's what I'd like you to do. Go to the URL on the screen, accepted.com/MBA/services/consulting, and we will be sending that URL out. Choose a service that's right for you, get the guidance you need, apply confidently and effectively. And if you do that today and you enter the coupon code STARTMBA100, you can also save $100. We're here to guide you and help you get accepted to the best MBA program for you. And now for your questions. Let's see what you got here. Tanmoy asks, "Hi Linda, what's your usual approach when dealing with international students? Is it tricky when someone is from different background nationality?" We work with people from all over the world. I don't know where you're located, Tanmoy. We have clients in India, Indonesia, Europe, Russia, Australia, South Africa, Nigeria, the Middle East, Japan, Korea, you name it, Mongolia. We've had clients there. We have consultants in Europe and Israel that work with many of our clients in the Eastern Hemisphere, which reduces issues caused by just time differences. But we work with people from all around the world. So we're also knowledgeable about other grading systems, etc., and very used to helping international applicants to English language programs, both in the United States, in the UK, Europe, wherever. Okay? So thank you very much for the excellent question. Ari asks, "Good afternoon, Linda. Does Accepted have experience in working with MBA fellowship programs such as the consortium?" Thank you for the question. Yes, we definitely do. As a matter of fact, Keith Vaughn is a former member of the consortium board of directors, as is I think Natalie also is, but I know that Keith is. Okay. You're very welcome, Tanmoy. Yes, and Jennifer Bloom has worked with many of our Indian applicants, as has Michelle Stockman, if you want to look at their bios. Okay, let's see. Let's see. "I'm an entrepreneur." This is from Laura. "I'm an entrepreneur, age 29. Am I too old to apply for an MBA at universities such as Oxford, Harvard, Stanford, and LBS?" Okay. Oxford and LBS tend to be more open to older applicants, a little more open than some of the U.S. schools. Stanford tends to have a slightly younger, less experienced student body, but they certainly will give strong consideration to somebody who's 29. How much work experience do you have? That's really more of the question than your age. How much full-time work experience do you have? So no, you're not too old is the short answer. You're fine. Apply to those programs. I mean, I don't know about your other qualifications, but in terms of the quantity of work experience, you're right in the middle for that. Okay. All right, this is a great question. Snigdha asks, software engineers from Indian applicant pool is very common, and there would be several people with a similar kind of experience. How would you make such a profile stand out? Oh, whoa. Um, well, first of all, we'd get to know you if we worked with you. I would focus on business achievements that you have had as a software engineer. I don't know if you can talk about that. You might want to talk about your non-professional experience, which could distinguish you from other Indian engineers. It's very hard to answer that question in this context, but we have worked with many Indian software engineers. I think the guy who got into Harvard that I mentioned was actually an Indian software engineer, but he definitely was Indian. And we do work hard on that. We also have a diversity checklist that, Rachel, maybe you can post a landing page for that. But they'll give you some ideas. But we work very hard on that with our Indian clients, our Indian software engineer clients. Yeah, that's a great question. The level of achievement that you've had, especially in terms of leadership, would be one way to distinguish yourself. Unusual background or extracurricular activities, travel experiences. There are different ways that we would work with you to distinguish yourself. All right, so Sudardeep asks, I'm involved with a small women's political organization. I'm concerned about putting this in my application due to the fact that we are working on quite a contentious social issue in the UK. What do you advise? Would admissions consultants be biased politically? You know, I don't know what obviously what this organization is advocating. It's an interesting question. We've worked with all kinds of people across the political spectrum. So are you really concerned about admissions consultants being biased or admissions committee members being biased? You're very welcome, Snigdha. Committee members, yeah. They try and have a very open mind. I was at the AGAC conference this past summer in Berkeley, and after a lot of sessions about diversity and open-mindedness, etc., one consultant stood up and said, would I be welcome in this school? I'm a Republican. And the entire Berkeley staff said, yes, we want a multiplicity of voices in our community. You would be welcome. Being a Republican would not automatically cause his rejection at Berkeley. So they try and be very open to differing political positions. I think there, probably some, if somebody were to advocate, I don't know, child beating, that might be a little bit tough for, or violence, that might be very hard for admissions committees to accept. But there is a broad spectrum of opinions that is welcome in business school. Interesting question. Okay, let's see what else we have here. This is from Spencer. I'm finishing the CFA level 3 in June, so can't start studying GMAT until after. Is 3 months not enough time to apply round 1? Well, a little bit that depends on the schools you're aiming for, your starting GMAT score, and the difference between them. If you're pretty close to your starting GMAT score when you start the process, then you probably have plenty of time. You can take maybe 6 weeks to prepare for the GMAT, and then you'll have 6 weeks left to apply. Depending upon how many schools you're applying to, you should be able to do it. Also depends on your work schedule. So, and if not, you can apply round 2, or you can apply to some schools round 1 and some round 2. So there are, again, there are different ways to handle that. I hope I answered your question, Spencer. I realize it's one of those it depends answers, which if you have a large gap between your desired GMAT score and the score that you get initially on your practice exams, you might have to postpone your application to round 2. Okay, Giulia asks, hi Linda, have you worked with lawyers who want to do an MBA? If yes, how was the experience? Yes, we have worked with lawyers. Thank you for the question. The experience was fine. I think most of them got in, but I don't have any data on that. It's not a large segment in the applicant pool. And we advise them the key thing for lawyers is to be able to demonstrate quant ability. Usually you're writing skills are excellent. It's the quant skills that are a little bit more of a question. Okay. So you want to go to all right. So anyway, Spencer, I think. All right. Let's see what else we have here. Jay asks, I'm over 30 and have 9 years of experience looking to get my MBA. Should I go for the executive MBA? Are you a career changer, Jay? No. Then an executive MBA might be a good idea if you're just looking to advance basically in the same field that you're at now. That might just be a better way for you to go. Obviously, you don't have to leave the workforce when you do the executive MBA, and that might be a better route for you. So, anyway, I hope I answered your question. If you were a career changer, I would strongly encourage you to go the full-time MBA route. But based on what you're saying, the executive MBA may be really, really good option for you. All right, Cassandra asks, would you consider having 2 C's in college worrisome? If so, would you recommend further explanation in the optional essay? Were the C's in your freshman year? Junior year? And well, you probably don't want to say your overall GPA. I would listen to the, it depends on, that's a very good overall GPA. I would probably just very, very briefly provide some context for those C's because I think it will raise some eyebrows, like what happened since your other grades are so high. You might want to, and just briefly address it in an optional essay. Yeah, unless there's something else you want to put in there. But that would be my response. Obviously, something was going on. Okay, Andre. Should you apply early decision? What are the cons of applying to those kinds of rounds? Well, first of all, there is a distance between early action and early decision. I think the early decision is binding, and the early action is not. So that make sure you understand the implications of the specific program you're applying to. Columbia, for example, it requires a large deposit very soon after you hear. So it's really for people who know that Columbia Business School is their first choice. Tuck is a little bit more flexible with its early action. I don't remember Duke's rules, but make sure you understand those. And the con could be that you're obligated to attend. You're asking what are the cons of applying to those kinds of programs. The plus, which you didn't ask about, is that especially at Columbia, the acceptance rate in the early action, in their early decision program or their early deadline, whatever they call it, is higher. It's than the overall acceptance rate. However, I've been told repeatedly by Columbia admissions officers, and they'll tell you the same thing, that if you apply early in their regular decision round, the acceptance rate is either identical or almost the same as in the early action. So that's it. The biggest negative of those programs is that if you're locked in early, and if you know that a program is what you like, it's not a big negative. Okay, now Kartik, you actually sent me an email. You have posted here a question, will online certificate courses have an impact on my resume? You can put them on your resume. There's no problem with that. I don't see your question, Emmanuel. I'll try and find it. But they will not make up for lack of work experience. They kind of show different aspects of you. So I'm responding to the question that you emailed before the webinar also. All right, here's your question. Now I see it. All right, what are my chances of getting into one of the top 5 business schools? I'd be 28 application and my undergrad school is not well known. I have good work experience and I'm aiming for a high GMAT score. Well, the fact that I think the example I gave earlier will show you that the fact that your undergrad school is not well known, provided you did well in undergrad, is not in and of itself going to keep you out of business school. This is again, the example I gave earlier, Natalie's client got into Wharton and MIT, and she came from a less well-known undergraduate program. Now, it is going to be really important that you had good grades at that less well-known undergraduate program, that you get a good test score, competitive, nice competitive test score, above average even, that you can show that you are a person of impact, contribution, that you're going to make a difference. All those things will help you in applying. The fact that you went to a less well-known school is not an automatic negative. It's not necessarily going to keep you out. Thanks for the great question.